watching College Basketball Recruiting Weekly. I'm your host, the 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Adam Finkelstein. And this week, we are going to look back on the April recruiting period, last weekend in particular, where our entire staff was on the road covering events from coast to coast. I was in Rock Hill, South Carolina for the Under Armour Association. Eric Bossi and Deshaun London, they were in Phoenix for the Nike EYBL. And Travis Branham and Brandon Jenkins, they were in Texas covering Adidas 3SSB. We're going to have coverage from all three sites coming up next.
So I was out in the desert this weekend, and while I wasn't quite prepared for the temperatures reaching triple degrees this early in the spring, it was definitely a worthwhile trip out there for the EYBL. Maybe the number one thing I went into over the weekend was trying to see, are we going to see any separation at the top of the 2024 class where Trey Johnson is number one and Dylan Harper is number two. And if we're looking for one of those guys to separate himself from the class and from the others, I don't think it really happened. They each had their moments. Trey Johnson came on late in the weekend, had a huge game to finish the weekend off with 33 points, hit 5 threes. I think he averaged a little bit over 24 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. So the numbers were good. But playing with a new team, the Houston Hoops, he's kind of settling into things and really finding his spots. They rely on him to create a lot for them when he's more of a catch and shoot type guy. But he finished off well. He's going to be taking a visit to Kansas this weekend, official visit. Baylor was prominent in his games. Texas was prominent in his games. John Calipari, Kentucky. So the usual suspects involved on him. As for Dylan Harper, he's down to Kansas, Indiana, Duke, Rutgers, Auburn. Saw a lot of Duke's John Shire with staff. Saw a lot of Coach Peichel from Rutgers there, seeing him play. So I would suspect those two are kind of the teams that are heading up with him. Interestingly enough, Harper shot 30 for 67 from the field. That's 44.8%, just like Trey Johnson did. So it's interesting they had equal shooting numbers, but Trey made several more threes. But Harper is another guy who's initiating a lot of offense for his New York Rens team that surprisingly went 0-4 over the weekend, despite having 2 other top 25 players in Tyler Betsy and Nas Cunningham on top of him. Dylan was pretty good overall, 18.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.8 assists a game, does a little bit of everything. Things bogged down a little bit at times while they were waiting for him to create. And there were a lot of bad jumpers, but when he attacks the rim and he catches it getting downhill, he's really, really good. Obviously, they're both still way up in the class, but neither one of them really took a hold of that number one spot like we were maybe hoping they did. Now, the class of 2025, the top 2 guys there, Cameron Boozer and Cooper Flagg, those guys know how to take control of things and assert their dominance. Last week, this time on the show, I talked about how I was a little frustrated by those guys playing 16 under ball, and I've even joked around about how I'm going to boycott them until they're playing 17U. But, those guys are too good to not go and check out, and they're certainly establishing and asserting their dominance. Cam Boozer, the numbers are ridiculous. The guy is shooting 83% from the field over the weekend. He's averaging over 27 points, around 12 rebounds. It's just ridiculous. He shoots from the outside. He's making almost 50% of his threes. He's got a jump hook. He can put on anything you need that guy to do, he can do. He won't turn 16 until July, and he legitimately looks like he could step on the floor and impact a game at any level of college basketball. And I'm not just saying like playing minutes, like be a legitimate factor. Likewise, so can Cooper Flagg. He's playing with a mask, but it's not stopping him. He averaged 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists a game. Just not shooting it quite as well as Boozer is, but he's still, I think, well over 60%. Puts it on the floor, attacks the rim, athletic finisher. Really doing a good job of sharing the ball and trying to make the guys around him better. Saw him in an 8 a.m. game, and he was competing like there was an NCAA title on the line, and you just love that about him. Blocking nearly 5 shots a game. He's arguably the best, most versatile defender in all of high school basketball. So they've got that going for him. So what you want to see out of the top 2 guys in that class, they went off. And really the theme there was how good the 2025 and 26 guys were. I want to finish with 2 guys before I finish up. One is another 2025 guy who's come out of nowhere, Darius Acuff, a kid whose name we had only heard up until a couple weeks ago. He's a point guard out of Detroit and plays with the family. Travis Branham wrote about him after the UIBL session in Georgia. Travis was all over that. And wow, what a stud. I think he's going to be in competition for 5-star status. Michigan offered, unsurprisingly, a lot of other guys rolling in on him. 6'1" long, can score. He's in the top 5 in the UIBL on the 17U division scoring as a guy who could be playing 16U. Just really does it all. Very shifty, can score, can shoot from the outside, can get to the rim, has some real swagger to his game. He's a guy that I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of, that we're going to see all the blue bloods starting to go on. And then from the class of 2024, I want to finish out with the best committed player I saw, or at least certainly the best performance for committed player I saw. That is Jamari Phillips, headed to Arizona. A little bit over 25 points a game, shot over 50% from the field. He's maybe 6'3" if you're being generous, so he's not the biggest shooting guard around, but wow, that guy's got some serious athleticism, some serious pop to his game, and was just doing everything. I saw Tommy Lloyd watching him play. You could just see he was pretty happy to be seeing this guy going out and doing what he's capable of doing. Gets to the rim. Not only is he bouncy, but he's got like a second and third bounce that would really surprise you for a guy. Normally we think of big guys when we talk about second and third bounce around the rim, but Phillips, for a 6'3" guy who's a bit more on the slight side, can really get in there amongst the trees, and he's got extremely functional athleticism, which is going to help him out. But he was my takeaway guy. He's already in the top 35. He's pushing for the top 25, maybe even 5-star status if he can continue the way he played over the weekend. But someone that Arizona fans are going to be really excited about. And like I said, he was the best committed player that I saw over the weekend. But that's it for me from the Nike UIBL. Looking forward to seeing them again in Dallas. But it was a strong weekend out in Phoenix.
Hey friends, Travis Branham here. This past weekend, I was on the road at 3SSB Chapter 2 in College Station, Texas, as the second live period was underway with college coaches back out on the road. However, many were hosting visits this past weekend, so not as many on the road as you would expect for a live period, but that will continue to pick up, especially as we enter July for the next session of AAU live periods when the transfer portal is finally at a close. However, the limited number of coaches did not stop the players from having some standout performances. And on Friday, 2 of those standout performances came from Indiana elite prospects, Flory Badunga and Travis Perry. Flory showed his improved skill set, as Eric Bossi noted after the first live period. He was very confident, to say the least, dribbling the ball up the court and pushing the break. However, that is still an area for him to continue to improve. As is his jump shot. He did hit one jump shot of the many that he took, but both areas for him to continue to develop. But he's still stuck to his strengths when it comes to defense, rebounding, running the floor, and catching lobs. He's a high-flying athlete that finishes with authority well above the rim. On the recruiting front, he is being pursued heavily by schools including Indiana, Auburn, and now Kentucky has entered the picture, and they have recently done an in-home visit, which he spoke about with 24/7 Sports, and I would encourage you to go check out over on the website. But he does plan to take a visit to Kentucky, whether it be in May or June, sounding more like June, but the date is still to be determined. One rumor that has popped up with Flory Badunga is whether he'll reclassify to the 2023 class or not. And when asked this weekend, he flat out said no. He will not be reclassifying. His counterpart and point guard, Travis Perry, also had a standout weekend. And he is a player that emerged last summer due to the fact that he just always seems to make the right play. He's a knockdown shooter, both off the catch and pull from 3, a very mature decision maker. He's tough, he's heady and instinctive on both ends of the floor. He was making plays on and off the ball on defense. Again, continues to set the table and make shots. On one occasion, he actually had 33 points this past week. And then lastly, on Friday, going back to that first live period where Eric Bossi and Adam Finkelstein were at 3SSB, they raved about a big man in the 2025 class, and he certainly impressed me this past weekend. That is Mustafa Thiam, a big man out of Austin River Southeast Elite and DME Academy. Tremendous size and length, fluidity. He is still raw on the offensive and skill front, but he did show some touch with his right hook. He was blocking shots, running the floor, and cleaning up around the rim. He is certainly a prospect that each and every single one of us and college coaches will want to keep an eye on. On Saturday, some prospects actually emerged, and one 2024 prospect is starting to turn the corner from prospect into player, and that player is Kenai Roos on DC New World. He was early ranked inside the top 20. He was one of the most intriguing prospects. He's got a tremendous size and frame, but the motor and consistency is something that we wanted a lot more out of him. And he has certainly ramped up his aggressiveness on both and engagement on both ends of the floor. He's got ball skills. He can put the ball on the deck, use his body and his frame and athleticism to finish at the rim, above the rim, and also draw contact to get to the free throw line. His mechanics are projectable. However, he didn't make many shots this past weekend, but certainly was a stock rising weekend. And going back to last weekend, again, Eric Bossi and Adam Finkelstein both noted his improved motor and aggressiveness, and was definitely one of those guys that stood out. Alongside him not alongside him, but that night a prospect broke out in the 2025 class, and that is Nico Bandalo, a Serbian. He is of Serbian heritage, but he is born and raised here in Ohio. 6'9", left-handed power forward that has a tremendous amount of skill, a great frame, high IQ. He plays both inside and out. He's got a smooth shot from three with range, but he's also not afraid at all of getting down on the block, playing physical, and scoring over either shoulder. He's also comfortable putting the ball on the ground, passing. Tough player, man. Can't recommend him enough in terms of players that will rise in the 2025 rankings and will certainly be slotted when it comes to that next update. A stock riser in the 2024 class out of Texas is Devin Pryor. He's a 6'7" wing. When you walk up into that court, Devin immediately pops off the page. He has a couple of high major offers already, but things have been pretty slow. But I would expect that to pick up, especially with how he played this past weekend. I actually got to watch him two or maybe even three times, and it seemed his confidence continued to grow throughout the weekend. He's a slasher, big-time athlete, finishes above the rim, and he can also make a shot off the catch and pull. Certainly somebody we will all be keeping eyes on in the weeks and months ahead. And lastly, another prospect that Eric Bossi noted after the first live period was Nate Ament, a 6'7" wing in the 2025 class that might not be done growing yet. He's still extremely immature when it comes to his physical frame and looks very young. So a player that could grow another 2 inches. And as his body fills out, as he gains strength, his athleticism is only going to continue to improve. And he is a spectacular prospect. Somebody that we could see making a big jump when he debuts in the rankings when it comes to that next update. He has, besides the physical tools, he's got a lot of game out on the court. He can make the shots from three. He plays the right way. He defends. He runs the court. He's a willing passer and just lets the game come to him. A tremendous prospect out of team-loaded North Carolina. And then finally on Sunday, we had a 2026 prospect emerge, and that is Sinan Huan, a Chinese prospect who moved to the United States this past June, a 7-footer playing with Austin Rivers Southeast Elite 15 team. I mean, when you look at a 7-footer at that stage and that age, very few have the mobility that he does, not only at that age, but just in all of high school basketball. He is an extremely mobile big man. He runs the floor with ease, and he runs it extremely hard. He's got good hands and touch. He's got skill. Another southpaw big man that people will definitely want to keep a close eye on. He has one offer already, and that is from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Another 2026 prospect that had a spectacular weekend was Caleb Holt. He led his team to a state title in Alabama recently, and he is continuing to play at an extremely high level on the 17 circuit. You don't often see many 2026, or I should say freshman prospects, playing with the rising seniors, but he is doing just that, and he is more than holding his own. He is outstanding in transition, big-bodied wing, physical, great athlete, and gets downhill and finishes. And he's he didn't make shots at a high level this weekend, but would anticipate him showing a little bit more of that and showing that he is a bit better of a shooter than he actually got to show this past week. And then rounding things out, we're going to finish it with a committed prospect. Again, another Indiana elite prospect, Cooper Coach. He is headed to Iowa. And this past weekend, he was lights out from three. On one occasion in one half, he hit at least 5 jumpers that I could count from three. Just a lights out shooter, going to a perfect fit in the Hawkeye system. But besides the shooting, he has a lot more game to that. He actually is a high IQ player who will pass and rebound when it comes to him. So a nice pickup, early pickup in the 2024 class. And that rounds it up just about. There's a lot more players that I wrote about that you can catch over on 247sports.com.
What's up, everybody? 24/7 Sports Director Scouting Adam Finkelstein. I'm here in Rock Hill, South Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, for Session 2 of the Under Armour Association. There have been a number of players who've stood out here, long line of college coaches here throughout all 3 days. Guys like Bryson Tiller, numerous other 5-star, 4-star, and rising prospects in action. Some of the ones that have been most impressive to me, I think you got to start with Team Thrill's Derek Queen. In terms of the most impactful players in that 17 and under division, it's got to begin with him. The big man, first of all, he's in the best shape I think I've ever seen him in. He's fit, he's keeping up with the game, he's been durable to play 2 games in 1 day. As we know, he's got some of the best hands in all of high school basketball. He catches everything that comes his way, and it also really aids him on the glass because he's an elite rebounder. He can score inside, he can facilitate, and that's the thing that has really stood out to me this weekend. I think some of the passing that he's shown has been absolutely off the charts. So Derek Queen certainly leads that list when you talk about the best performers in that 2024 class in the 17 and under division. In the class of 2025, I think it's got to begin with Sean Abayo. He's playing for SOH Elite. He came out of Session 1 as the leading scorer in all of the Under Armour Association, and he's continued to play at an exceptionally high level throughout Session 2. We're talking about a big lefty wing. He's got terrific dexterity. He can play make. He's a really good passer, especially in the open floor. He's got an ability to shoot over top of smaller defenders. So continuing to put up big numbers here this week and making a big impression on college coaches. A couple other guys that have really impressed. For Team Curry, Sir Muhammad, someone I saw during the high school season at the City of Palms, looked like a big physical wing, but in this setting, people are calling him a point guard. His feel for the game, again, the passing ability, really stood out. With his size, his body type, his strength, the ability to see the floor and make reads as he's done here this weekend has been tremendously impressive. When it comes to a stock riser, I'm going to go to Casey Run GMC, and I'm going to go with Andrew Crawford. I'm talking about a 6'6" lefty who is super fluid, who can handle the ball, who can really see the floor and pass. Was told he was a little bit of a developing shooter, but he made 3 threes on Saturday morning. He's got great touch. He can move his feet defensively. As he continues to build up his body, learns to play through contact more consistently, he's definitely going to be a prospect on the rise in that national class of 2024. For lots more, make sure you visit 247sports.com. We'll have multiple recaps throughout the course of the week. Thanks again for watching this semi-remote episode of College Basketball Recruiting Weekly. We will be back next week, same time, same channel. Until then, though, be sure to visit 247sports.com. We've got all your needs covered. Recruiting period, college basketball, transfer portal, NBA draft, one-stop shopping for all your basketball needs. We'll see you next week.